Mr. Walker here again, and congratulations, you've almost made it all the way to the end of this first module. So kudos to you guys for working so hard and for putting up with all these boring videos from me, but you're doing great. And today we're going to take all of the knowledge that you've gained from all of the other videos and all of the awesome practicing you've been doing, and we're going to kind of culminate it or put it all together to do some problem solving again. So we have some word problems that we're going to take a look at, and we're going to use the strategies that we've learned and that we've practiced with throughout this module to solve some of these problems. So what you'll need for today is your problem set, okay? So it has some word problems on it, and we're actually going to work through some of these problems together so you can fill them in and sketch along, right along with me. So make sure you have that, make sure you have something to write with, and make sure you have an empty, open math mind ready to apply all your previous knowledge. So you can do a couple deep breathing techniques. In with the good math, out with the bad. Whatever you need to do to get yourself settled and ready to go. So as soon as you're all set and you got everything good to go, click continue and we'll get started. All right, so the first problem we're going to take a look at together has to do with a factory. And this problem says, in 1 year, the factory used 11,650 meters of cotton, 4,950 fewer meters of silk than cotton, and 3,500 fewer meters of wool than silk. How many meters in all were used of the three fabrics? Man, there's a lot going on in this problem right here. So take a minute, read it one more time to yourself, and then let's start to break down the problem a little bit and see what we can figure out. Okay, a couple things that I see going on. First of all, they want to know, the actual question that they're asking is how many meters in all were used of the three fabrics. So we know we're going to have to find out how much of each fabric was used and then how much altogether, right? So let's look back in the problem if we can figure out, and just see if we can figure out how many meters of each type of fabric were used. So here it says we used 11,650 meters of cotton. So that's one distance that we have, right? Or one amount of fabric that we have. So I'm going to go down right down here, and I'm going to start sketching out anyway my tape diagram, and I'm going to write 11,650 in this rectangle because I know that's how much we had of cotton, right? Cotton, C-O-T-T-O-N. Perfect, okay. Looking back into the problem here, it says I used 4,950 fewer meters of silk than cotton. So I don't know how much silk we used, but I know we used 4,950 fewer meters of silk. So I can come down here and I could write silk, and it's not going to be the same amount as my cotton, so I'm going to draw it a little bit smaller here. And I know that I'm going to have to subtract basically 4,950 from the total of cotton in order to find out how much silk I have, okay? So that's how much silk I would have. And then it says 3,500 fewer meters of wool than silk. So I used even less wool, right? Less wool than silk. So if this is my total for silk, which I don't know yet, but I know my wool is going to be even less than that because I'm going to have to subtract 3,500 meters because I used 3,500 fewer meters of wool than silk. So I'm going to have to take that much away from my silk in order to find out the wool. Okay, and just to help you maybe visualize that a little bit more, if this is my cotton that I started with, okay, I have to find 4,950 less than that to get my silk. And if this is the silk I started with, I'm going to have to find 3,500 less than that to find out how much wool I have. Okay, so I don't know these two numbers yet, but once I have them, I can add them all together to figure out how many meters in all were used, but I don't know what they are yet. So you guys take a minute and think now, based on what we know, based on our tape diagram, what would be our next step? What would you want to do in order to try to solve this problem? Okay, so my first step is going to be to figure out how much silk I have, and then I'm going to go to wool, and then I'm going to add those three numbers together to figure out how much we used in all. So I'm going to take the amount of cotton that we have, which was 11,650, and I'm going to subtract how much fewer silk that we used, because it said we used 4,000 950 fewer meters of silk. So I'm going to subtract those numbers, and that should give me what's left over here, okay? The total amount of silk that we used. So I can start in my ones place, going to move right to left. 0 minus 0 would be 0. 5 minus 5 would be 0. 6 minus 9. Ooh, can't do that. So I'm going to have to borrow. So I'm going to borrow this 1,000 here. So I don't have any thousands left. And I'm going to turn that 1,000 into 10 hundreds. So I'll add the 10 hundreds to the 600s I already have. That will give me 1600s. Okay, so 16 minus 9 will give me 7. Perfect. And then, oh, can't do this now. This is a 0. I can't subtract 4 from 0. So I'm going to have to go to my 10,000s place, take that 10,000 and unbundle it into 10 1,000s, right? 10 minus 4 will be 6, so 6,700. That will be how much silk I have. Cool. So I have 11,650 meters of cotton, 6,700 meters of silk. How much wool do I have? Now, why couldn't I have started with the wool? Awesome. Well, I get 3,200. A lot of you might have seen these zeros across the top and already automatically started borrowing, but you didn't have to, okay? Because I'm subtracting 0 from 0. So that means I don't have to borrow because it's just going to be 0. Awesome. So now I know for wool, I have 3,200. So now that I have all of these lengths in meters of the different fabrics, what do I do next to solve the problem? How many meters were used in all? What do I need to do? What's my next step? You're absolutely correct. I need to add all three of these numbers. My 11,650, my 6,700, and my 3,200. So go ahead and add those up, and then we can come back and check our answers. Awesome. So I got 21,550 when I added those three numbers up. One important thing that I want to write, though, is that it's just not a number hanging out there in space. It's 24,000 meters of fabric. I want to make sure to label my answer, right, so I know what it is that I'm looking at. So altogether, I used 21,550 meters of fabric. Okay? A lot of steps going on here, but nothing we couldn't handle. All things that we could do, we just had to make sure we had that tape diagram laid out, and then we could use it to help us solve our problem. Good job following along with me on this one, guys. Let's take a look at the second one real quick. All right, we're actually going to skip past the second question because I'm pretty sure you guys can do this one on your own. It has some of the same steps, just maybe the opposite of what we did in the first one. And we're going to move all the way down to this third one here. And this one says, in the first week of June, a restaurant sold 10,345 omelets. In the second week, 1,096 fewer omelets were sold than in the first week. In the third week, 2,000 more omelets were sold than the first week. And in the fourth week, 2,000 fewer omelets were sold than in the first week. So this one seems like it's going back and forth a little bit. It seems like we have some more and some fewer, so we're going to have to do some adding and subtracting, I think. Because what they want to know is how many omelets were sold in all of June. Okay, so in those 4 weeks, how many omelets were sold in all? So we know that in the first week, they sold 10,345 omelets. So I'm going to go ahead and start my tape diagram, and I'm going to draw that in here first. I'm going to start with that. In week 2, the second week, so let's do this. Let's do week number 1. You can label it however you want. This is how I'm going to label it. In the second week, they sold 1,096 fewer omelets. So before I just jump in here and do this all for you, what would you do, or how would you show weeks 2, 3, and 4 on your tape diagram? How would you draw those in? Alright, so I went ahead and drew out my tape diagram. Hopefully your tape diagram looks something similar to mine. Doesn't have to be exact, but as long as you have the same idea, then we're in the right spot, right? So my week 1 I had is 10,345 because it told us right in here in week 1 that's how much they sold in the first week. In the second week it says they sold 1,096 fewer. So what I did was I drew a rectangle to represent what it was, which I don't know yet. It didn't tell me exactly, but I drew this little space here to say that it's 1,096 fewer than what they started out with on the first week. So if we were to kind of line this up here, we know it's 1,096 fewer than what they sold the first week. Moving on to week 3, it says in the third week they sold 2,000 more omelets. So what I did was I drew my rectangle for the first week, which was 10,345, because that's what they sold in the first week, and then I added on this piece of 2,000 because they sold 2,000 more according to our problem. So again, if we're lining this up, right, we can see that 2,000 more, that's going out above what we had on the first week. And then coming down here to week 4, it says in week 4 they were 2,000 fewer again. So if you drew my line down here, again, I don't know what it is, but I drew this as 2,000 fewer because I know it's going to be 2,000 fewer than the first week, which was 10,345. So seeing this now, seeing this tape diagram drawn out, what steps do we need to take in order to find out how many omelets were sold in all of June? What do you think we're going to need to do? All right, there's a couple interesting things going on in this problem, and definitely more than one way that we can solve this problem. So there's different ways we could do this for sure, but the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of go in order here, and I'm going to figure out what my week 2 is, right? I know what week 1 is. I want to know what week 2 is. So to do that, I'm going to have to take my week 1 and I'm going to have to subtract this little piece from it, the 1,096. So if I take my week 1 of 10,345 and I subtract 1,000, almost wrote that in the wrong place value. If I subtract 1,096 from that, right, I lined up my place value. I'm going to start from right to left and move my way across. So 5 minus 6, 5 take away 6, can't do that. So I'm going to go over here and look, and I can borrow from this 4, but I'm going to be in trouble anyway because I have to subtract 9 from it. So let me just go one more down, start down here at my 3. I'm going to borrow or unbundle one of those hundreds. So I'm going to have 2 hundreds left. I'm going to unbundle one of those hundreds into 10 tens. So this would be 14 now. And then I'm going to borrow one of those tens from there to make it 13. And now this guy will be 15, okay? So now we can go ahead and subtract, and this would be 9. 13 minus 9 would give me 4. 2 minus 0 would give me 2. And I could do this and borrow again if I want to, and, you know, do this as 0, and then this guy is 10. Or I could just think of it as 10 minus 1, which is 9, either way, okay? So we know now that this, week 2, 9,249 omelets. That's how many they sold. So not too much less than their first week, but about 1,000 less, right? Okay, cool. So now week 3 and week 4, that's where we need to look at, right? So week 3, they made 2,000 more omelets. Week 4, they made 2,000 less. So what I could do is I could take that 10,345 and add 2,000 to it, right? And then I could take that 10,345 and I could subtract 2,000 from it. But since I'm adding 2,000 here and I'm taking away 2,000 here, doesn't that kind of like balance each other out? If I were to take this piece right here and slide it in over here, it would fit, right? Making this 10,345 because I wouldn't have this piece on the end anymore. And it would make this, and it would make this 10,345 because I'm adding in the 2,000 that I took off over here to fill in that gap, okay? That might be kind of a tricky concept to think about right off the bat, but for Mr. Walker, it's all about saving some time, right? That might be a little hard to conceptualize and to see right off the bat, okay? But this does definitely, it is a little bit of like a trick, like a little bit of a shortcut to help us get to our answer faster. So if I were to set this up as 10,345 plus 2,000 and 10,000 and 10,345 minus 2,000, I would still get the right answer. Okay, there's nothing wrong with doing it that way. But what I would find out is that they would kind of cancel each other out, and I don't really need to do that step when I could just kind of fill in the gaps there, okay? So that's just kind of a shortcut, but I'll go ahead and do it out so we can see what it's actually going to look like, okay? So if I added these two together, I would get 12,345, okay, which means that week 3, my total for week 3 would be 12,345. And then if I subtracted these guys, I would have 8,345, which means my week 4 total would be 8,345. Okay? So now I know all 4 of my weeks. They want to know how many omelets were sold in all, so I just have to add up those numbers. All right, there's a lot of numbers to add up. Why don't you go ahead and add yours up, I'll add mine up, and then we'll come back in a second and see what we got. Okay, so I have taken my numbers from week 1, which is 10,345, week 2, 9,249, week 3, which is 12,345, and week 4, which is 8,345. I have stacked them all up, and I need to add them up to find out how many omelets were sold in all in June. So I'm going to add those up. I want you guys to add it up as well, and then we'll come back together and see what we got. Okay, so I got 40,284. So that's how many omelets were sold in all. 40,284 omelets. Excuse my sloppy handwriting there. Okay, definitely a lot of steps involved in this problem, but this tape diagram really truly helped me even to see what I needed to do with each one of these numbers and how I needed to combine them in order to get to my final answer. So hopefully this helped doing some problem solving together. I encourage you guys to try this some more on your own. I want you definitely to do number 2 that's found on this sheet on your own, see what you can come up with. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, any extra additional help you need, if you're just not understanding how to use a tape diagram or how to dissect the problem, please reach out to me and let me know. That's what I'm here for, okay? I appreciate all the hard work that you guys put in this module, and I can't wait to see what other great problem-solving skills and otherwise you're going to learn throughout the year. So thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.